It was 7:41 a.m. when the dark sedan pulled into the staff lot behind Larchmont Academy. Morning fog still clung to the hedges, coating the immaculate stone pathway. Mr. Elijah Grant stepped out wearing a simple coat over a button-up shirt, slacks a little too loose at the waist, and a scuffed leather bag on his shoulder. He looked like a man who was here to deliver packages, not teach. Inside, the front office was already buzzing. A receptionist glanced at him briefly, then tapped the bell on the counter twice, summoning someone else to deal with him. Elijah waited patiently, hands clasped in front of him. A young staff member with a slim tie and rushed energy appeared from a side hallway. "You're the sub for Peterson's class?" "Yes," Elijah replied. The man didn't shake his hand, just led him down the corridor, talking without turning. "Senior Computer Science. You'll find their names on a list. They're not exactly easy. Just manage the room. Don't try too hard." They reached the classroom. The bell rang. Students filed in, barely glancing at him. One kid said, "Where's Peterson?" Elijah didn't answer yet. Just watch them settle. The staff member handed over a printout. "Here. They'll probably test you. Don't let them push you around." Then he left. Elijah placed his bag on the desk, opened it slowly, and took out a folder marked Larchmont Curriculum System, Core Infrastructure Notes. He didn't introduce himself. Not yet. The classroom was silent for a few seconds after the last student sat down. Not out of respect, just boredom. A tall boy in the back yawned without covering his mouth. A girl by the window pulled out her phone. Elijah didn't tell her to put it away. He scanned the room slowly, meeting a few eyes. Most looked away. "I'm Mr. Grant," he said. "I'll be filling in today." No reaction. A few leaned back in their chairs. Someone near the front whispered, "Here we go." Elijah set the folder down, opened it, and pulled out a stack of paper. "You've been working on a software design module, building an app backend." Peterson left notes. "But we're not using them." That got a few heads to turn. "I'll be assigning something different," he continued. "You'll design a system that can scale across districts. Handle attendance, gradebooks, teacher logins, student dashboards. Real structure. Not hobby code." "Wait," a kid near the window spoke up. "Like what schools use?" "Yes," Elijah said. "That's not what we've been doing." "I know," Elijah replied. He moved to the whiteboard and began writing. User roles, permissions, load balancing, data privacy. The room shifted slightly. Quiet, but watching now. A boy in the front row raised his hand, unsure. "That's enterprise level." "Yes," Elijah said, uncapping a marker. "And before noon, you'll map out how it would work." "But how are we supposed to?" "You'll try," he said calmly. "Because that's how I built mine." Silence again. But not boredom this time. Confusion. "Wait, built what?" someone asked. Elijah didn't answer. He just kept writing. The board filled quickly. His handwriting was clean, precise. Not the kind students were used to. He labeled each section with purpose: authentication, session handling, encryption standards. By the time he wrote multi-tenant architecture, even the girl with the phone had lowered it. "Some of you are wondering what this has to do with Peterson's syllabus," Elijah said, turning back to face them. He paused. Let the quiet settle. "It doesn't." A few exchanged glances. One kid gave a half laugh, unsure if it was a joke. "This is what real systems look like before they're built. Ugly. Raw. Functional." Elijah picked up the stack of papers he'd brought. Each was a printout of actual production diagrams, anonymized, but real. "These are from an active school system. You'll work in groups. Choose a role: systems architect, front-end lead, database admin. You'll outline how your part works. And how it breaks." He walked between the desks, placing one printout per group. Students looked down at the pages, eyes widening at the complexity. "This isn't for a grade," Elijah added. "It's for practice. The kind you don't get from watching a lecture." In the back, a hand shot up. The tall boy who yawned earlier. "Where'd you get these?" Elijah gave a small shrug. "I wrote them." A pause. Then, slowly, a few heads turned toward him, not out of obligation this time, but interest. Recognition creeping in. "Wait, like, for a real company?" the boy asked. Elijah looked at him. "For 116 districts." He turned and started drawing the first architecture flowchart. No one said another word. The silence in the room had changed. It wasn't the flat kind that filled a room when no one cared. It was the kind that came right before something clicked. The students leaned forward now. Even the ones who usually coasted through class, content to half listen and coast on group grades. Something was different. This wasn't a man reading from a worksheet. He was building something live in front of them, and he knew exactly what he was doing. A girl in the third row whispered to her friend, "Did he say districts?" Her friend nodded slowly, still watching Elijah sketch out the system's load balancing layer. A boy near the front Googled Elijah Grant under the desk. A few clicks in, he blinked, then turned his screen slightly to show the kid next to him. Founder of CorePath Education Systems. Developed platform used by over 40 school districts in 3 states. Former engineer at. The boy swallowed. Whispered under his breath, dude. But Elijah didn't acknowledge it. He kept his focus on the board, diagramming interactions between teacher dashboards and student profiles. Then he paused. Turned back. You don't need to be impressed, he said, his tone flat but not unkind. You just need to focus. A few students looked away, embarrassed. I didn't come here to be recognized, he added. I came here because your teacher's out and I had a morning free. He looked at them then, really looked, and something in his eyes made even the cockiest students sit up straighter. Let's get to work. And just like that, the room transformed. 20 minutes in, the students were working but not smoothly. Groups huddled together, arguing over load times, login protocols, database models they barely understood. This makes no sense, one said. Why would sessions expire after 20 minutes? That's annoying. Elijah walked by, paused. Annoying for you. Safer for student data. The boy blinked. Oh, right? In the back, the tall kid from earlier pushed his chair back slightly. We're just high schoolers. You're asking us to build, like, national-level tech. I'm not asking you to build it, Elijah said, stopping beside him. I'm asking you to think like someone who could. The tall kid looked away. Mumbled, still feels kinda impossible. Elijah nodded once. That's what I was told too. He didn't elaborate. Just moved on. A few desks away, a girl frowned at her group's whiteboard sketch. How are we supposed to connect all this without real server knowledge? You learn, Elijah said. Or you fail. And then you learn. His tone never shifted. Calm. Undramatic. But steady. He turned back to the board and added a new heading. Failure points. List them, he said. Where would your system crash? Where would users get stuck? If you can't find weaknesses, you don't understand the build. The room quieted again, not out of confusion this time, but focus. Real focus. And from the hallway, through the small glass pane of the door, the assistant headmaster walked by, then stopped. She stared through the window at the substitute who now had 20 elite students sitting silently, solving system faults like junior engineers. Her brow furrowed. She hadn't approved any of this. Not yet. At 9:42 a.m., the assistant headmaster, Ms. Cole, stepped into the classroom without knocking. She wore a charcoal blazer, perfectly pressed, and carried a leather folder tucked against her side like a shield. The door clicked shut behind her, drawing every student's eyes away from their work. Elijah didn't turn immediately. He was writing something at the board. Excuse me, she said sharply. He capped the marker, finally facing her. Yes. I wasn't informed we had an outside contractor, she said, her tone clipped. May I ask what curriculum you're using? Elijah paused, then held up the folder from his desk. Peterson left his plans. I'm not using them. Ms. Cole's expression didn't shift, but her eyes narrowed slightly. And who approved that decision? Elijah gestured toward the students. They did. By engaging. That answer didn't help. One of the students, Alicia, third row, spoke up. We're building a school-wide education system. Like for real districts. It's kind of insane. Ms. Cole looked at her. Then at the group sketches on whiteboards. Flowcharts. User hierarchies. Authentication layers. Her eyes returned to Elijah. Mr. Grant. She paused. The name clicked. Barely. Maybe. Are you with CorePath? Elijah gave a small nod. Ms. Cole blinked. I didn't realize they sent consultants for substitutes, she said, the condescension barely veiled. They didn't, Elijah replied. I came on my own. And you expect students to understand production-level systems? In a single class? I don't expect mastery, he said. Just effort. And attention. She took a slow step forward, lowering her voice. This is a college prep environment, Mr. Grant. These students have standards. They also have potential, he replied. Calm. Still. That hung in the air. Behind them, one of the students scribbled faster. Another started erasing part of his earlier sketch, already improving it. Ms. Cole saw it. And said nothing. For now. Ms. Cole left the room without another word. The door clicked shut and a few students exhaled. That was tense, someone muttered. She always walks like she owns the building, another whispered. Elijah said nothing. He just walked over to a group huddled around a half-finished database schema. Your relationships are off, he said, tapping two fields. You've got duplication here. Normalize it. The student nodded, erasing quietly. But across campus, Ms. Cole was already dialing. Her office phone rang twice before the line clicked. Mr. Green? Sorry to interrupt. We have a situation in room 214, computer science. The substitute is improvising. She listened, pacing behind her desk. No, I don't believe the material is appropriate. It's well beyond curriculum. There's no documentation. Another pause. Yes. That Elijah Grant. Silence. Her face changed. No, I wasn't aware he was on the board. Another silence. I see. Understood. She hung up slowly. Stared at the phone. Then at the framed photo on her shelf, one taken 3 years ago, ribbon-cutting ceremony for Larchmont's new digital learning center. Standing near the edge of the group, barely noticeable, was a man in a navy coat and no tie. Same eyes. Same calm. Same Elijah Grant. Back in room 214, no one knew anything had changed. The students were still working, focused, engaged. But something had shifted, and Ms. Cole now realized. The substitute wasn't just a guest. He was a stakeholder. At 10:12 a.m., a ping sounded from Elijah's phone. He didn't check it right away. He was crouched beside a group of students, reviewing their proposed user roles. "You don't need 5 admin tiers," he said. "One's enough. Power should be earned, not assumed." A student nodded, biting her pen cap thoughtfully. "I didn't think of it like that." Another added, "But then who oversees the admins?" "Good question," Elijah replied. "Now you're thinking like architects." He stood slowly and returned to the teacher's desk, finally glancing at the notification. It was a short email. 2 sentences. Subject: sub-coverage from Headmaster Green, appreciate you stepping in. Stay as long as you'd like. Elijah closed the message without reacting. No smile. No nod. Just a flicker in his eyes, like something had locked into place. Across the room, a student raised her hand. "Mr. Grant, can you check our login flow?" He walked over, examining the sketch. "You're passing credentials in plain text here," he said. "Don't ever do that. Encrypt. Always." More nods. More scribbles. He moved from group to group, not performing, not preaching, just guiding. Quiet, methodical. His teaching style didn't announce itself. It sank in. At one point, Alicia whispered to her group, "How is this guy not a full-time teacher?" None of them had the answer. And none of them knew what was coming next period, when the headmaster himself would walk through the door, not to interrupt, but to listen. The second bell rang at 10:45. Students from the next class started filing in, some confused to see the room still full, sketches taped to walls, equations scrawled across every whiteboard. Elijah greeted them with a simple nod. "New group, new challenge. Sit wherever." Before the shuffle could settle, the door opened again. Headmaster Green entered. He was tall, silver-haired, the kind of man whose presence filled a room even before he spoke. He wore a navy suit, no tie, and a faint look of curiosity. Students noticed. Whispers started. Mr. Green didn't speak, just stood near the back, watching. Elijah didn't stop. He handed the new students a fresh prompt. Design a tool to track student wellness and engagement without violating privacy. That got their attention. A girl raised her hand. "Is that even possible?" "Start by asking the right questions," Elijah said. "What should you track? Who sees it? Who owns it?" Mr. Green stepped forward. "Would you mind if I stayed a while?" Elijah looked at him briefly. "It's your school." The students stilled. A few glanced between the two men. Something unspoken passed between them. "Carry on," Mr. Green said, taking a seat in the corner. For the next 20 minutes, he said nothing. Just watched. Watched how Elijah moved through the room, not commanding it, but holding it together. Watched how students, some of the most privileged in the district, listened. Focused. Cared. And somewhere in that quiet observation, something in Green's face shifted. Respect. Not because of Elijah's resume, but because of what he saw with his own eyes. At 11:18, a student raised her hand, this time not for help, but with something else on her mind. "Mr. Grant, can I ask you something?" Elijah turned toward her. "Go ahead." She hesitated, then said it anyway. "Why are you here? I mean, why the school? Why today?" A few heads turned. Not rude, just genuinely curious. Elijah didn't answer right away. He looked at the girl for a second longer than expected. Then at the group. "Because I wanted to see if what I helped build actually works," he said finally. The room went quiet again. Mr. Green's eyes narrowed slightly, watching. "You're talking about CorePath?" another student asked. "Yes. But you don't need to be here," the first girl said. "You could be anywhere." "I am somewhere," Elijah said. "Right here." "But you're not a teacher." "No. Not by title." "So why teach us?" This time Elijah paused longer. "Because too many of you are surrounded by systems you use but never question. And one day you'll be in charge of them." He scanned the room. "Better you learn now what it means to build something that matters, while you still have time to decide what kind of person you'll be when no one's watching." A different kind of silence filled the space after that. Not tension. Not confusion. Something heavier. Understanding. Mr. Green leaned forward slightly as if to speak, but didn't. He didn't need to. Not yet. By noon, the board was a mess of ideas, boxes and arrows, scribbled notes on ethics, data retention, student consent. Elijah called time. "Step back," he said. "Let's look." Students stood, some stretching, others quiet. It wasn't the kind of exhaustion that came from boredom. It was the kind that came from thinking harder than they had in weeks. Elijah pointed to a sketch on the far left. "Tell me what breaks first." A boy stepped forward. "If admin doesn't flag false alerts, the system overcorrects." Elijah nodded. "Good. And over here. The parent portal pulls too much data," another girl said. "Could compromise privacy." Heads nodded. Elijah stood back. Now ask yourselves who would build this the wrong way. And why? That question hung there longer than any answer that followed. At the back, Mr. Green rose. He wasn't smiling. But there was something in his face, a measured respect, one that didn't come easy. You've given them more in 1 hour than some of us do in a week, he said quietly, not just to Elijah but to the room. Elijah didn't respond. He didn't need to. Green turned to the students. Do you all know who he is? A few nodded. One whispered, he's on the board, right? Green nodded once. Yes. And when the school's learning system was designed, when your digital curriculum was failing, this is the man who rewrote it. Mouths opened. One student actually said, wait, what? Elijah didn't confirm. He just uncapped a marker and quietly wrote one final word on the board. Impact, then underlined it once. That was all. The room didn't return to normal. It couldn't. Not after that. Some students stood still, uncertain whether to sit, speak, or just take it all in. Others exchanged glances, confused, impressed, maybe even a little ashamed. A few looked at Elijah differently now. Not as a sub. Not even as a board member. As something else. Green stepped aside, giving the floor back to him without a word. Elijah erased the board slowly, clearing everything except the final word. Impact. He turned to the students. Anyone can get good at building things. That's not the hard part. He paused. The hard part is deciding why you're building them. A few heads nodded. Elijah picked up the original folders from his desk, the ones filled with Peterson's lesson plans. He didn't tear them. Didn't dismiss them. Just set them neatly aside. These were fine, he said. But fine isn't what the world needs right now. He met their eyes, one by one. Not to intimidate. Just to make sure they knew he meant every word. You're going to be trusted with decisions someday, about data, about people, about what you automate and what you don't. Don't wait until then to ask hard questions. A hand went up. Alicia again. Will you come back? Elijah looked at her. Maybe, he said. But you don't need me to. Then he turned back to the board, drew a small square, and wrote inside it. You. That's who builds what comes next. The bell rang. But no one moved right away. Students packed up slower than usual. A few lingered by the door, hesitant, like something important had happened and leaving too quickly would be wrong. A boy who hadn't spoken all class walked up to Elijah, clutching his notes. Is there, like, a place I can learn more about system architecture? Elijah nodded once. Check your inbox later. I'll send you a list. The boy smiled, then left. Another student hovered by the desk. Do you think someone like me could ever do what you did? Elijah looked at him for a moment. You already started. The student didn't reply. Just gave a quiet nod and walked out. Mr. Green stood near the doorway, arms crossed, his tone softer than usual. You know, he said, we bring in guest speakers twice a year, CEOs, professors, consultants. Elijah raised an eyebrow. Green continued, none of them have ever had a room that quiet. Or that focused. I didn't speak to impress them, Elijah said simply. I just respected their time. Green studied him for a moment. I'd like you to come back, he said. Formally. Elijah didn't answer right away. He was looking through the glass window into the hallway where his students, were now walking slower, talking differently. Less noise. More thought. He turned back to Green. We'll talk. Then he picked up his bag. And walked out the door. Word had spread. By the time Elijah passed the main office, a few teachers were already murmuring. One looked up from her coffee and did a double take. That was the substitute? Another nodded. Apparently he's on the board. Built their tech system. No way. But it wasn't just gossip. There was something else in their voices, unease. Not about what he'd done, but what they hadn't. The feeling that they might have missed something, dismissed someone, and been seen doing it. Elijah stepped into the staff lounge. He'd left a note for the custodian there, an old friend from his early days consulting with the school. Someone who always had the decency to greet him, no matter what he was wearing. The room quieted slightly as he entered. A science teacher glanced up. You're Mr. Grant, right? He nodded. She shifted awkwardly. Didn't realize who you were earlier. Sorry if No need, Elijah said, cutting gently. I wasn't here to be recognized. He poured himself a small cup of coffee. No cream. No sugar. Another teacher spoke up from the couch. Students haven't stopped talking. Whatever you did, you hit a nerve in a good way. Elijah didn't smile, but his voice was steady. I didn't come to make a splash. Just wanted to see if the tools we built still made room for real learning. He looked around. No hostility. Just quiet reflection. Then he added, the question is, what do you do with what they saw today? Nobody answered. Not yet. At 12:42 p.m., Elijah stepped out into the courtyard. The afternoon sun cut through the clouds now, casting sharp shadows along the brick walls and trimmed hedges. Students crossed the quad in small groups, heads down, some glancing up as he passed. A few nodded. One waved. Quiet signs of recognition, not just of who he was, but what he represented now. He didn't linger. The parking lot was half full, the same sedan waiting at the far end. No reserved sign. No special markings. Just another space. As he approached, a voice called out behind him. Mr. Grant. It was Alicia, backpack slung over one shoulder. She hesitated, then jogged the last few steps to catch up. I just wanted to say thanks. For treating us like we could handle it. Elijah nodded. You could. She looked like she wanted to say more, but didn't. Instead, she handed him a folded piece of paper. Group 3's final sketch, she said. We didn't finish, but I thought maybe it was worth keeping. He took it without a word, unfolding it briefly to glance at the scrawled boxes and arrows. It was messy. Incomplete. But it had weight. Thank you, he said. She turned to leave, but paused. You'll really come back? Elijah didn't answer right away. Then softly, only if I'm still needed. She smiled. I think you will be. She walked off. Elijah stood there for a moment longer, then slid the sketch into his bag, got into the car, and drove off without fanfare. By the time the last period bell rang, he was gone. But his presence hadn't left. And neither had the questions he'd planted in teachers, in students, in the very foundation of the school. Questions that didn't shout, but stayed. And waited. For someone else to answer.